Hawks are trading Dejounte Murray to the New Orleans Pelicans. That per multiple reports. In exchange for Murray, Atlanta's going to receive a package that includes 2 first-round picks, Larry Nance Jr. and Dyson Daniels.
Dejounte Murray just got traded to the New Orleans Pelicans, as you heard from that clip from just before. He was traded for Larry Nance Jr., Dyson Daniels, EJ Little, and 2 firsts. So, not much. The Hawks got seriously cooked with this one, giving up Dejounte for 2 firsts and a role player, as well as a guy with some potential who just came off a season averaging 5 points in 22 minutes a game in Dyson Daniels. They didn't even get Trey Murphy. The Hawks are trying to enter a rebuild, and giving up your second best player and only getting 2 picks out of it is absolutely embarrassing. It's like the Pels gave their lowest offer and the Hawks were just like, okay. The Hawks got absolutely cooked on this one. Dejounte going to the Pelicans is epic though. We'll get to see him run point guard again and set up Zion and potentially BI as well. Back before he played with Trey and he was a primary ball handler, he averaged 9 assists per game and was just an all-round better player. I don't blame him for not being as good in Atlanta though. They had a terrible locker room, and being a guard paired with such a ball-dominant Trae Young would be tough to adjust to. He's going back to being the primary point guard though, and New Orleans gets an actual point guard instead of having to run CJ McCollum at the point. He can go back to being a shooting guard. Now, New Orleans has a bit of a center problem, and that's that Big Val isn't cutting it anymore. New Orleans just acquired a young center in Yves Missy, and he seems to have a lot of potential. And Jonas Valanciunas is a free agent. So here's what I think they do, and this might shock some of you. Let Val walk. If you let Val walk, you open up cap space to sign good role players and potentially a vet center to help develop Yves, specifically Andre Drummond. A lot of teams are probably going to be looking at Drummond, but I think he'd be good here in New Orleans. He can come off the bench for Yves and help develop him. Or, if Yves doesn't work out for the first season, maybe he could start. Other free agents the Pelicans should look at are Pat Bev. He's a cheap vet, could probably get him on a vet's minimum. He's an enforcer and he can defend. Another is Bol Bol, another cheap player. He can contribute to this team with some scoring and shot blocking. He's a bit of a slacker though. Simon Fontecchio would be a good player for these guys to pick up. He's a good spot-up wing and can defend off ball somewhat. He'd be a good addition and just a good person for Dejounte to swing to for an open 3. He might be a little expensive though, I don't really know. Finally, Malik Beasley, a good guard defender who can shoot open 3s. He's not that expensive, this past season being paid about $3 million, and he's going to come and be a big contributor for any team he joins. Anyway, the starting lineup for the Pelicans should look something like this. Dejounte point guard, CJ shooting guard, BI small forward, Zion power forward, and Yves center. This team, if they add their depth, could very well be in the top 4 of the West next year. And right now, this team is the one I'm most excited to watch. Before, when I mentioned that Dejounte was averaging 9 assists before he went to Atlanta, this past season he averaged 6. So, I think his averages might look something like this with the Pels. 20 points, 6 rebounds, and 9 assists. So, I think this is the best place that Dejounte could have been sent, other than maybe the Spurs. Back to Atlanta, they are showing that they plan on entering a rebuild, but they still have one problem. Trae Young. Trae Young has said that he has 3 preferred teams to go to. Lakers, Spurs, and Pelicans. Lakers, that would just be stupid for everyone on that team, and could potentially be the Russ experiment part 2. Pelicans just got his teammate, and the Spurs have Stephon Castle. The only team that I think is a possibility out of those 3 is the Spurs, because they're probably who the Hawks are targeting. The only way I see this happening is if the Spurs want to flip Trae for more picks and role players. This probably isn't likely though, because the Hawks picks are very valuable. But if this does happen, the Hawks trade Trae Young for Devontae Graham, Keldon Johnson, and Zach Collins, as well as their first round picks back. Then Trae Young gets traded to Orlando for Jalen Suggs, Gary Harris, and Markelle Fultz, as well as their 2026 first round pick and 2027 first round pick. But honestly, I don't see this happening because the Spurs give up so much only to get less back. And I don't want the Spurs to have Trae because I want them to try Stephon. And Wemby and Stephon will be some of the best defense in the league. And as soon as you add Trae, it just goes down the toilet. I don't think the Hawks will trade Trae Young anywhere else but the Spurs because otherwise they're tanking just to help the Spurs. But I really don't want to see Trae in San Antonio. He'd fit best with the Magic, And the Spurs wouldn't do what the Rockets did and trade the Hawks picks for the Magic's picks because they're not trying to get anyone from the Magic. Who knows, maybe Rhys O'Shea will be averaging 40 in his rookie season and him and Trey can take the team to the promised land. The Hawks are in a tough situation and just made it tougher by trading Dejounte for a bag of chips. Who knows though, maybe the Spurs want to trade for Trey. Maybe they think Stephon and Wemby's defense can compensate for Trey's bad defense. What do you think?